Yo, what is up everyone? It's your man, I Do It Barber, and this one's a little bit different. This is a full-length tutorial from start to finish. You're gonna watch me do this fade on this young man right here. We're doing a mid-ball fade. We're gonna do the lineup, and I found this one very interesting because obviously this is different than my other tutorials. This is full length and you get to see everything that I do. It's a little bit hard for me to explain what I'm doing in a 10 to 15 minute tutorial, but in this one you'll get a lot of in-depth knowledge as to why I'm doing what I'm doing, blah blah blah. So I found his hair very interesting because his hair is very coarse. It's not, I wouldn't say it's very dense, but it's very coarse. So a lot of people have problems with that, especially getting out lines and the shaver line and things like that. So I found this to be very interesting. So I've got the envies with the lever slightly open, and I'm just creating the guideline for me to bald out. So now I have on, I think this is it's either the 4-0 or the 5-0. Doesn't really matter. Just use something that you can bald out with and clear the space. Like typically some people would bald out up to create the line. I don't like doing that because depending upon the length of the hair as well, you know, that can play a factor. Like his hair was pretty long. I'd hate to have to bald up and create a line that way because sometimes the line may not be as straight. And just doing that where you use your adjustables with the lever open and just tapping the line all the way across, or I mean, if you're comfortable with it using your trimmers, you can do that. But this is just the method I chose. Actually, I know exactly what blade this is. This is the 4-0 because you could see those stripes running down the back of his head. I remember this exactly was the 4-0. And I'm just balding out and I'm using my detachable. I mean, I highly recommend you guys use a detachable blade clipper to do a lot of bulk removal, or use it to set in guidelines in your fades because it works so fast. It'll save you a lot of time. And that's all I'm doing here. Very, very simple. Like I said, his hair, you'll see once we start balding out, his hair can be very tricky with how thick it is. But I'm going to show you how to get through all of that stuff here in this video. So, and let me know, like, don't forget to subscribe, guys. If you haven't subscribed, like and share. If you want to see more full-length tutorials like this, let me know, because I'm going to be honest, I was thinking when I was doing this video that, hey, I have all the footage to do full-length tutorials. When I do a regular tutorial, it's just I condense it down. So if you guys want to see more full-length tutorials, let me know, especially on interesting haircuts where I think you guys will find a lot of value from it. So now I've got the Bronze Series 7 and I'm going up, and honestly, you'll see once we get more towards the back, you'll get a more defined look, but I'm leaving about a 1-inch space there. I'm not taking the shaver all the way up to the line, and I'm doing this on purpose, guys. You'll see that with the shaver line, and you can see as his head turns, you'll be able to see a little bit more clearly what I'm talking about with that 1-inch line that I'm leaving. Why am I doing that? That is for contrast. You know, you can take it up to the top if you want. Just know once you create your 1-inch guideline with the lever open, you're gonna have to bring that guideline high so it doesn't look too bad, especially with a client like him who has coarse hair. So you see how I'm leaving that 1-inch space. I'm leaving that 1-inch space there. You can see there's a little bit of something there, but it's no problem. We're gonna come back and buff that out with the trimmers. And like I said, I'm leaving that little gap there for contrast. Yes, this is a mid-ball fade. And the key with most fades is contrast. And one tricky thing with his hair, this particular client, is that he has like some density issues in certain areas of his head. And I'm not sure if it's stress, because I've cut his hair quite a few times, and sometimes I'll cut his hair and it'll be like a light spot in one particular area. And I'm like, man, are you stressing? Is it, you know, some sort of alopecia? Because this happens. If you guys are barbers, this can happen with clients. You know, you can have clients that come in with alopecia. I just cut someone with alopecia a couple days ago, and it was actually pretty bad. This lady was older, so there are many different forms of alopecia. In her case, maybe it was alopecia areata, I'm not sure, because she is older, and I know alopecia areata is really no alopecia. Geez, I forget the other name for the one for older people. Man, I got to go back in my book and look. I think it's alopecia senalis is what it is for older people. But anywho, you see with the shaver line, I'm buffing out that line that I created, that 1-inch line. And this is one thing that I like to tell you guys: set up your tools properly. Setting up your tools properly is very important in making the fade process easy for you. Now, if you use a down fading method, this is great. You know, you won't have too much of these problems, but if you're fading with guidelines, this is a very important thing to note. Very, very important thing to note. And of course, I'm using my brush because with someone that has thick, coarse, dense hair, you want to use a brush, not a comb, because you're going to be combing a lot. You want to get a brush in there to really brush off the debris, really clear off your workspace so you can see clearly what you're doing at every moment. Because like I say, with someone's hair that's coarse and dense, if you go in there, and especially if you're fading down, you need to see the little minute details in how the fade is turning out. So you really need to brush. So as you see there, you can still see a little bit of the line that the shaver left in the back, and that's no problem, because you go back to the general rule, and a lot of people struggle with this. And you see, there it is. That's the general rule. What I put that in with is what I'm going to use to take it out with. And I'm just using my shaver, and I'm just bumping and buffing up. So you'll see that line is gone. But as you see, this area is pretty nice and clear, clean and clear. So now I'm going to we're actually doing a mid-ball fade with the 1.5 with the grain. What I have here is a 2 blade. Now I elected to use the 2 blade instead of the 1.5 because with his hair, like I say, he has some lighter spots, and I didn't want to come in so aggressive with the 1.5. I wanted to actually knock the bulk down with the 2, then come back with the 1.5, because I wanted to just speed through taking his hair down, and I wanted to do it with no regard. So if I would have done that with the 1.5, I would have had to been very cautious, especially in the crown area. And I just figured, hey, with the 2, I can easily just go in, no holds barred, boom, 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 no regard for the crown, no regard for messing up, because hey, through the parietal ridge is going to be a 2 anyway, so no big deal. And typically I like doing this in certain scenarios where I don't take all the bulks of hair down like really fast. I take it down with something a little bit bigger first, like in this case, the 2, then I come back with the 1.5. Therefore I can get a very smooth look. It's just like when you're fading, you're not putting a guideline in and then working up. Not to say that you can't do that. A lot of people do that and they work very well in the system. But if you're creating guidelines and blending them out going down, it's a slow reduction of hair, which means you're going to get a very smooth blend. So that was the purpose of me doing that with the taking it down with the 2. Now I have the 1.5. So I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see much of a difference in the hair. So you can see hair coming off with that 1.5. You see how much of that hair is coming off with the 1.5. And with this client too, also, he has like some, I'm not sure if they're like scars or maybe pimple scars or bump scars throughout parts of his head. So you probably saw it when I was balding out the nape area of his neck. But in some parts, you'll see as we do the fade, he has some scar in there. So it kind of makes the blend look a little weird in some spots, because you'll see a dark circle, which will make it appear like a dark area, but it's just really a bump or scar, or pimple scar or whatever. So now I'm really just going in with this 1.5, making sure it's all clear before we go into the fade. So as you see there, very clear. I didn't worry about the sides, obviously, because we're going to take all that stuff down. I'm worrying about what's on the top. I want to work efficiently as possible. So as you see, I have the envies with the level open, and we're doing the nice 1-inch guideline, a good 1 inch. This isn't a shallow. And look, You've probably seen people say, hey, I'm doing a 1-inch guideline, and their 1-inch guideline might not look like someone else's 1-inch guideline, or their 1-inch guideline might not look like their 1-inch guideline that you've seen them do in other videos or whatever. This is a good 1-inch. You can see this. This is, and I'm just going to be honest with you, this is more than 1 inch. I'm just going to be honest. I can tell by looking at this that this is more than 1 inch, but there's a reason for this. I'm doing this because his hair is very dense and coarse. Not dense, but his hair is very coarse. So I want to have room to fade. When you're fading someone that has dense, coarse hair, if that's the case, you want to really make sure that you have adequate enough space. So as you see here, I created that guideline, and I did two passes because I wanted to make sure the hair was clean and clear. I didn't want to make sure that I just do one pass and then come back, and then now because right now I have the level about halfway closed, and I'm going up into that guideline. You can see the bottom line starting to lighten already, but I didn't want to do just one pass and then come back and do this process because I might chunk the hair. Because what happens is, depending upon your clipper, you know, the speed, the power of the clipper, it may not take all the hair down cleanly. And this is why I recommend like detachable blades, because you get a really clean cut very fast. If I were to just use the OA on the detachables, I could have created that guideline easy. It would have been easy. I could have done one pass. But of course I'm using my Envies because if I figure, hey man, I'm going to be using these adjustables. It is what it is. And by the way, I've got the lever almost closed here, and you can see I'm attacking the bottom line. So right now I'm attacking the bottom line. We're getting ready to remove the bottom line. That's our general purpose right now. And then of course, once we finish this process and get to closing the lever, we'll start refining everything because we want to be perfect before we move on. And remember, like I was saying, you could put these guidelines in with the detachables and then erase them with the adjustables. That's a very good strategy. If you guys are very interested in that, especially if you fade with wall clippers, or even the masters. You could do it with the masters. You know, put a guideline in with an OA, erase it. Put a guideline in with the 1.5 blade, erase it. And you can work really, really fast like this. Or if you see me, you know, I'll use my adjustables lever open, erase it, then use the 1.5 and then erase it with the guard. Very, very easy process. And this is the process that I'm going to use here on this fine young gentleman in this video. So I've got the lever closed and I'm just attacking the bottom line, and I want to make sure it's buffed out. Now, here's one thing to note. When you create a guideline with the level open, oh, and by the way, you can see in the back here, actually, you know what, I'll refer to this a little bit later, but I'll just mention it now because once I mention it later, it'll all make sense to you. For all the barbers out there, you know that the hair on the temporal area versus the hair in the back or the occipital bone area, it's a lot more dense, a lot more coarse, and it's a lot harder to remove those lines. When I mean by harder, you just have to know how to make the necessary adjustment to do it. It's not necessarily harder, it's just a little bit more time consuming. That's what I mean by harder. And you'll see that here in a little bit. It'll make more sense, and you'll really be able to see it here once we move up to the 1.5 level. But this one, I'm just making sure we're perfect. You see I opened the level and I'm coming up a little bit higher because of course, before we move on to the next one, we want to make sure that this area is nice and clean first. And one thing about this open lever before you move to the 1.5, the one look that you want to have before you proceed is you want to see the hair look like it's almost bald, but you can see a slight transition. That's the look that you're looking for. If you look at the hair and look at the guideline and then immediately look at the hair underneath, you want to see that hair, it will appear from a distance like it's almost bald, but it isn't. There's some slight stubble and you'll see a slight transition. That's the look that you want to look for before you go into this process with the 1.5. So as you see here, 1.5, another good 1-inch guideline. This is a very good 1.5 inch or 1 inch guideline. Like I said, with the guideline beneath that we created and erased, that one was more than 1 inch, and so is this one. Like I said, it's for the purpose of him having this coarse, thick hair. And there's some cases where clients may want a shallow blend. It looks good on some people, and sometimes it doesn't look good on some people. I don't like it on people that have very light complexion skin and very dark hair, because the blend, it just doesn't look quite appropriate. So now, as you see, I've got the wall with the level open. Now look, remember I mentioned the temporal area? You see that? I just made one pass right there, and you can rewind this. I just made one pass right there, and it's barely a line left. Now watch as we go to the back and I go up with the level open. You will clearly still see the line in the back. You see this as I'm going through this process. This is no magic. You see what's happening. You see that there's still clearly a line there, much different than the temporal area. The temporal area, I barely made any strokes. You saw it with your own eyes. This tutorial is not sped up. This is real time. And this is kind of what I like about these full length tutorials. It's real time. I'm not cutting anything out or anything, but you saw what happened. You saw the difference in how the hair reacted in the temporal area versus the back of his head. It's a much different reaction, guys. This is one thing you need to remember when fading people's hair. See, as I turn them, you see that line, and then you look at the temporal area, not much there. So now I'm going to lower the level. You see where I started? I didn't start right at the front because there's really not much work to be done. But did you see how I went over there and just tapped it just because? This is when you're going through a fading process, you want to go through all your process and not skip steps. This is one thing that I see people do. They'll skip steps. And although I could have just completely skipped that step, I didn't want to. I just went there and tapped it just for the sake of tapping it, just to say that I tapped it and did it. I didn't necessarily have to, but I just did it. So as you see, that line in the back is starting to lighten that much more. And the thing with fades, you see that area I'm working in right now? This area on most people will have this area. You see that black dot there? That's one of those pimple scars I was telling you about that will really throw off a fade. That's not hair, it's just a scar of his. But as you see, I've got the level closed now. And you see, I'm starting right there. I'm not even worried about the front because it's pretty much done. And you see, I just tapped it just because. That's the funny part about fading. But you see that area I'm working in right now on both sides of most people's hair, and I highlighted there. That area, you will typically have to go up a little bit higher because that area of the hair, there's an indentation in most people's heads as it transitions to the back. That's why it can be tricky doing a drop fade, because as a drop fade, the fade needs to drop with the bulk of the hair. And what happens is that little indentation travels all the way down the side of the head in most cases, and it leaves a very dark shadow. So in that area, you saw how I went up higher. I went up higher in that area because it was creating shadows. So with fading, you have to create the illusion that is not there. So, and that's what you have to do. As much as you want to be stubborn and stick to the game plan, you have to call audibles and really adjust to the fade and the person's head, their density, and issues like this. That's one tricky part about, let's say if he was a Caucasian gentleman that had straight hair and he wanted a comb over, a pompadour that drops in the back, and you're trying to create a silhouette and he has that indentation in his head and it's creating a dark spot in the fade. Now, what are you to do as a barber? What are you to do in that situation? Are you going to kill his silhouette to erase a dark spot, or are you just gonna be content with the perfect silhouette? In my opinion, create the silhouette. Do not go up so high, because you're gonna mess up the shape of the hair and, like I said, the silhouette, and you're gonna raise the fade a lot higher than either you want or he wants. So now I have the two, and I'm going up into his parietal ridge, and this is gonna tie the 1.5 with the grain with the 2 against the grain. So just to let you guys know, if you're using detachables, if you do a 1.5 detachable with the grain, the 2 against the grain will erase it. The 3.5 blade against the grain is the same length as the 1.5 blade with the grain. just to let you know, if you guys ever curious, if you have a waver that wants a 1.5, you can take a 3.5 blade and go against the grain. It cuts the hair evenly. And because, you know, as you know, cutting hair with the grain doesn't cut the hair evenly. There's actually a few longer areas when you're cutting hair with the grain. So, you know, that's the beauty of cutting hair against the grain. You get an even cut. So as you see here, I'm just going through and reducing some of this, just trying to tie this fade in together. And now I'm going to put back on my 1.5. And as you see, I'm using the corners to attack some of these dark areas in the fade. And here's one thing I want to mention as I'm lightening up some of these dark areas. And of course, I'm going to have to come back, because you see the line there, just prior to ridge. I'm going to come back with my wall with the level open and erase that. But here's one thing to remember when doing a fade, or to try and work more efficiently doing a fade. You want to put your fade in first and then just come back in detail later. One thing I've noticed is if you try and like work so perfectly all the way through, it can become time consuming. So you really want to just get your fade in there, like go through your system, get the fade in there, and then do your detail work, because you don't want to spend your entire haircut detailing. You know, there's this one thing with time management when you're doing a haircut. You really have to have really good time management, because you don't want to spend too much time on a lineup. You don't want to spend too much time balding out. You don't want to spend too much time trying to put the fade in. You don't want to spend too much time detailing. Me personally, I would rather get all the easy stuff done first and then worry about detailing the haircut and finishing the haircut and just polishing it. That's just me. That's just the way I work. I do allow myself a little bit extra time to do haircuts, so that allows me more time to do detail work. And a lot of clients like that. So as you see, the fade is looking pretty good. Pretty good. And I'm just going to take that wall half and go up a little bit higher. Now, like I say, what you put something in with is what you take it out with. That's just one general rule you have to remember. You have to stick to this rule. If you're ever in a situation where you don't know what to do, you don't know how am I going to remove this line. Here's one thing. If you see a bulky area or a line or whatever, especially a long line, start big and work your way small until you get comfortable enough to where you know exactly what you need to put on, and then just go in there and attack it straight away. That comes with time. That comes with experience and knowing your clips and knowing your blades and knowing what each guard or blade or what scissor over comb length or clipper over comb length is going to do to that particular area of the hair at any given time. Once you have this knowledge, I kid you not, guys, it will be a lot easier once you have this knowledge. So now we're going to go on to do the lineup, and I did a video on how to do an edge up. I'm not sure if you've watched that video. I'll try and throw a link in the description below. Actually, I will. I'll put a link in the description below to how to do an edge up. The video's doing really well. It has like around 80,000 views, I think. And I'm going to show you guys something here while doing his edge up. I'm starting with the vertical bars first. And in that video, people were like, oh, why don't you start from the middle? You should start from the middle. Here's one thing I'll always tell you guys. There's no right or wrong way to do anything. Just as if you can get the job done either just as fast as me, just as efficiently as me, and just as good as me, good on you. There's no right or wrong answer. If that's the case, if you can get the job done just as good, just as fast, just as efficiently, there's no issue with what method you take. Now, I'm going to start from the middle, which is what I do not do. And there's a reason I don't start in the middle, because I know I'm not good at doing edge ups when I start in the middle. So watch, you'll see this. And it's actually kind of funny as I watch this. I'm kind of curious to start in the middle again on someone else and maybe fix what I saw in this video. If you see what I did, comment down below and just let me know. But I don't like starting in the middle, and it's for a very good reason. But in this video, I attempted to do his edge up by starting in the middle. But of course, I was just, after I did it, I was like, this is exactly why I don't start in the middle. So look, here's one thing. I put the 2-blade on and I'm prepping his hairline. I mentioned this in the how to do an edge up video, and that's prepping the hairline. You saw I took the long hairs down so they don't crawl over, and you just reduce some of the length there at the front of his hairline to where it can grow in a little bit less. It doesn't take so long for his hairline to just grow back on you. So as you see, I created that line in the middle, and now I'm working my way left, and then I'm going to work my way right. But it's not gonna look right. You'll see exactly what I'm saying, but it's an easy fix with an edge up. With an edge up, you just have to really put your line, do whatever process you do, whether you put in an edge up like I do, where I do the vertical bars, tap the corners, then I'll even it all across, or you start in the middle, whatever. Do whatever it is that you do. Try and make it as natural as possible, and then of course look in the mirror and see what adjustments you need to make. Now his hairline, as you saw, you pretty much have to create it. So you have to come in there and really make sure that his edge up looks appropriate to the side of his head, and don't push the vertical bars out too far. Don't push his hairline too far back, because you saw in the middle there, his hairline, the dark area was a lot higher than the hair on the sides. It grew, the little hair on the right and the left side of his, it grew down quite far, not like the middle. So I really just, I created it from the middle portion, and then I moved my way out. So now, as you saw, you see how it like leaned to the right. I've noticed every time I start in the middle, all of my edge ups will lean to the right. This is why I do not start in the middle, but maybe I will try and practice and try and work on this. So you'll see as I come here, I had to take the camera away. I had to actually have him face me because he was facing the camera, and I was literally looking through the viewfinder of the camera to do his edge up. So I had to take him away and do this myself. So as you see, I'm attacking this right side and I'm squaring it up basically. Because that's the thing with doing YouTube videos. A lot of times, especially if you're not shooting from a point of view angle, I'm not getting a good angle when I'm actually fading, and when I'm looking at the fades, I'm not getting the best angle. So I had to turn him to me and really like get an accurate look at his hair. So now I'm applying shave gel, and we're gonna shave this excess hair on his forehead. And when I do most edge ups, I shave the person's entire forehead. Reason for that is there's a lot of vellus hair on really the entire face, but the forehead especially. And by shaving the entire forehead, one, it exfoliates dead skin cells, and two, it will give the person a different complexion by shaving their entire forehead. And this is what I do with a lot of my clients. And he has some pimples on his forehead, so I got to be a little careful. I can't just Speedy Gonzalez through this portion of the haircut, because I don't want to nick a pimple and have him start bleeding and stuff like that. So I got to take my time a little bit. So, you know, just got to be a little bit careful. And I'm stretching the skin, blades around 30 degrees, and I'm just letting it glide. I'm letting the blade do the work. I'm not applying any pressure. And of course, if you notice, that's an exposed blade. So when you're working with an exposed blade, you want to be extremely careful. You don't want to move too fast, because it's really easy to mess someone up with an exposed blade. And I'm just tidying it up with the razor, just going back. And of course, once you're finished with the razor, typically what I'll do is I'll still come back with the trimmers and just attack anything that I see. I'll just tidy up the edge up with the trimmers. And you see, that's what I'm doing right here. I'm coming in and I'm gonna attack anything that I see. And as you see there, boom, boom, boom. Especially if you use shave gel, because the shave gel, it'll clump up on the hairline. And once you comb that excess gunk from a shave gel out, it'll throw off an edge up. And that's exactly why I come back with trimmers after I do that. You see, like, the corner on the left side is not as defined as the other side, and that's because his complexion is just, it's different right there. And that's the thing that you have to deal with clients is, you know, every client has it's their own issues and problems that you'll have to deal with when cutting their hair. So as you see, now that this is finished, I will come back and do a little bit of detailing. And as we all know as barbers, once you put a line on something, it will expose more things in the haircut. And that's all that I'm doing here. I'm just really just attacking some stuff. I'm coming in with the 2, and I'm just making sure all that hair is even. You know, didn't necessarily have to do this, but I just did it just because. And of course, you know, you can see that left side, he has those bumps there that's creating even darker shadows. And it just is what it is. You know, there's nothing you can do about it. You can just do your best to create the illusion. So I was looking at his hair in the mirror there just to make sure everything is nice. And I'm just coming back with the trimmers and I'm just tapping. And nothing is really coming off. It's just very minimal. Like, for you guys to understand that, like, I'm just tapping. Like, you'll see something, and as barbers, you'll know and learn, one little hair will literally throw off a blend or an edge up. So I'm basically now taking the blade and I'm getting that hair that's right by his ear, in the corner, in the crease of his ear. If you guys know what I'm talking about, barbers, you guys will know it's really hard to get a shaver in on that area and really ball that out. So a lot of times you'll have to come back with your trimmers. So now I'm just cleaning him up before I give you guys a little spin move. And of course, scissors on the top. You could either freehand with your adjustables, you could freehand with your trimmers, whatever you're comfortable with. I just chose to use my scissors this time. I like using the scissors sometimes just because for me it's a little bit easier and a little bit stressful than having to, you know, coast over someone's hair doing a freehand, especially if you've been cutting all day and you get tired. Man, like, just because think about it, one false move with the trimmers or the adjustables with the level close, it's over. You're giving a free haircut or you're fighting. So, you know, for me, scissors is a lot easier, and I'll just use scissors. So, very clean look for him. I'm gonna apply some hairspray. As you see. Really cool. I hope you guys found this helpful, guys. If you like any of the products, or if you want to buy any of the products that I use in this video, links to all that stuff will be in the description below. But here's a 360 of them, mid-ball fade, how to do it with the shaver and all of the stuff. I hope you guys found this helpful, got some information from it, and I hope you can implement anything that I've done in this video into your game, and you can get better also by doing so. And like I said, if you guys want to see more of these full-length tutorials, let me know. I'll put them out. Of course, they're a little bit longer and they're really good for beginners. You get to see the process in a slow manner, not where it's so sped up and a lot of things are cut out like a normal tutorial. But it's been your man I Do It signing out. I'll holla.